If you're just joining us, the negotiations in Washington continue, and we have learned that both sides apparently have agreed to the income tax increase, raising the level on upper income earners of about $400,000 for individuals, $450,000 for couples, to the top rate of 39.6%. That apparently is in the offing right now. But even with those new details, Republican Congressman Huelskamp of Kansas is still outspoken on his view that there should be no tax increases for anyone when it comes to this final deal.
We also have Maya MacGuineas, who heads the Fix the Debt campaign, and she has also said any small deal solves virtually nothing. Will both join us now to offer their reaction to the very latest that we've had out of Washington today. Maya, to you first, always ladies first here on CNBC. Your organization, Fix the Debt. From what you're hearing on the fiscal cliff deal so far, do you believe this is going to do the trick, or does this still fall into the camp of what you would call a small deal?
Yeah, there's no question that this is discouraging where we're headed. I mean, the good news is that if we don't go off the cliff, that's certainly preferable. Having gone off the cliff would have certainly been bad for the economy and likely put us back in recession. But if you know that saying that the country is one big debt deal away from being a great nation again, it does not appear that greatness is in the immediate future for us. This is just, once again, sort of the sad end of the year fiscal grab bag that you see coming out of Congress, where they're actually still not willing to come together and make the hard choices that we need to look at on cutting spending, reforming entitlements, and raising enough revenues to really stabilize the debt. So this is such a lost opportunity. It's really, really a shame.
Congressman Huelskamp, we welcome you, sir. Here's something the president said earlier during that statement he made on the cliff negotiations at the White House. I want to get your reaction to this. Here's what he said on taxes.
If Republicans think that I will finish the job of deficit reduction through spending cuts alone, without asking also equivalent sacrifice from millionaires or companies with a lot of lobbyists, et cetera, if they think that's going to be the formula for how we solve this thing, then they've got another thing coming.
From what we hear, sir, the Senate Republicans have gone along with a tax increase. I can imagine what the president said and what they're talking about is not pleasing to you.
Well, it looks like another Washington deal and not a solution. I think the numbers are very clear, and Maya represented that as well, that we've got spending problems. We've got entitlement problems. We can't meet those obligations. And if Senate Republicans have already agreed to tax increases, then I think we're missing out on the real part of the package we need to have, and that's dealing with the spending problem.
Would you vote for a deal with these tax increases?
No, I don't think so. When I look at those numbers, we're still trying to sort through those. It looks like at least 1 million small businesses will see their taxes increase, and I've yet to see a study or a report or any small business owner that says, you increase my taxes, I'm going to grow the economy, I'm going to hire more people. We supposedly agree in Washington get the economy growing again, that we want to be about growth and about jobs, and these tax increases don't create jobs. But we need to, most importantly, look at the spending side, and I'm disappointed if they already agreed to raise taxes and are probably trying to undo the spending cuts is what I fear might happen in the next few hours.
But I'm sure if there are a lot of other Republicans that were thinking exactly like you, that you're not going to vote for it because we just don't want to see any taxes go up, then essentially we go over the fiscal cliff. Are you saying that you would rather go over the fiscal cliff than vote for these tax hikes? I mean, do you think it's going to get past the House, for example?
Well, I don't know if it will pass the House, and the president seems intransigent. He seemed put off by actually having to be back in Washington, D.C. instead of on his Hawaiian vacation. But the real issue is spending here, and the sequester is the name for spending cuts. And I'm afraid at the end of the day, there'll be some Washington deal that will raise taxes at a level that won't impact the deficit, actually lose jobs, and also undo the minimal spending cuts that are due to happen tomorrow. I think that was the president's statement. He didn't want to do the spending cuts side and just want to raise taxes, and that is just a deal. It's not a solution in my book.
Where do we go from here, Maya, to get what you would want as a solution? What next?
I do think that this is a lost opportunity on two fronts. It's a lost opportunity that we're not replacing the fiscal cliff with a big comprehensive debt deal that would actually fix the problem. And it's a lost opportunity in that we seem to be back in Washington, the same old finger pointing and blame game. And right after the election, I really was hopeful that members of Congress would be able to come together and work out these hard issues. We're not there yet, but the fight's not over in that these debt problems are still there facing us. We're going to have to go right into January and get back to work on entitlement reform and tax reform. The job is not even close to finished. And what's important is that in whatever debt deal they pass today, they agree that they come back as quickly as possible and work out these challenges, because the economy will not grow in any meaningful way until we have the stability and certainty of starting to tackle these challenges.
Maya, with all due respect to Congressman Huelskamp, did you really think the 112th Congress was going to change its spots and come together on a grand bargain of some kind?
Well, I'm always hopeful, but leadership usually starts at the top, and I haven't seen much leadership in this town. But one thing that happens at the end of the day is not just the fiscal cliff, it's we go crashing to this debt ceiling, which to me represents the real issue, the real fundamental challenge is we're running $1.3 trillion deficits, been doing that for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and these little deals are not going to solve the $1 trillion deficit problem. It's only a few days worth of spending. The real issue we got is $1 trillion. We're still off from actually getting to fixing the deficit problem, and that's why I think, again, I agree with Maya, this is a missed opportunity if this is indeed where we end up at the end of the day or at the end of the week.
It's very easy for us to criticize, right? It's very easy for us to sit here and criticize the politicians, but if you look at it, Maya, for example, from the politicians' point of view, and I'm not necessarily supporting them, I'm just saying they need to be elected. Who's going to have the real guts to stand up and make those tough decisions on whether it's the deficit or spending or whatever? I mean, who's going to make those tough decisions, Maya?
You know, you're absolutely right. When I've done town hall meetings with members of Congress, for instance, you really get a sense of just how hard this is, because they go out and they're greeted with people who are saying, you know, don't touch this or don't touch this or do it my way. But there's another group of people, and that's actually what this Fix the Debt campaign has tried to bring to the discussion, which is there's a whole lot of people who are tired of the blame game in Washington and actually do understand that these tough choices that we have to put in place to help deal with the deficit and debt are the right thing to do. And we're willing to say, we're willing to pay more in taxes, we're willing to have spending cut, we're willing to reform entitlements, if you work together and put in place a plan that actually fixes the problem. No more little deals and incremental fixes that don't work, but Fix the Debt at least wants to say to members who work together and make the hard choices, we will support that instead of lobbying against it for all the special interests that we've been seeing dominating this discussion for so long.
Last comment to you, Congressman.
Well, yeah, I've done 140 town halls in the last 2 years with real Americans, and what they tell me over and over, it's not a taxing problem, it's a spending problem. Yeah, there are a few folks that say, hey, Tim, raise my taxes as long as it goes to reduce the deficit. But when I tell them we're still running $1 trillion deficits, they say, hey, we'll even cut some of our own programs. But most folks in Washington are not willing to cut any programs, especially their own. They might talk about cutting other programs. And I hear real Americans say, hey, we need serious entitlement reform. But the president is dead set against that. And that's sum total. That's the problem here. Long term, we've got to deal with entitlements. And I don't think this deal would touch those at all. And that is the serious problem that I think threatens the financial stability of our nation.
All right. We appreciate your thoughts, folks. Thank you very much. Happy New Year.